regular host, Yao Banafo. Before I introduce you the guest or facilitator for today's show, let me explain briefly what outsourcing and corporate support means. Outsourcing is a business practice whereby a company hires a third-party organization to execute its operations. It is usually undertaken by companies as a cost-cutting measure. On the other hand, corporate support is a business strategy whereby a smaller entity leverages support from top-tier entity to grow its brand. Usually, the larger firm provides value-added services to the smaller entities. On this note, we bring you today's edition of Masterclass. Don't forget that we will actually activate our WhatsApp line 05511119997 so that you can ask your questions and make your contributions as well. The phone lines will also be activated 15 minutes to time, and the number is 0302 216 so that you can also call and make your contributions and ask your questions as well. Today on the show, we want to be more practical and have a conversation on the topic area of leveraging corporate support and outsourcing services for startups in the context of graduate entrepreneurship. We began actually this topic 2 weeks ago, and we have been delving on graduate entrepreneurship, the role of the universities, as well as graduate entrepreneurship, consumer success as far as the young entrepreneurs are concerned. But let me quickly say that we are streaming live on our Facebook page, Joy 99.7 FM. You can also reach us on our Twitter handle, Joy 99.7 FM. Our WhatsApp line, like I announced earlier on, will be activated so that you can make your contributions and ask your questions as well. Let me take a quick recap of last week's show where we look at graduate entrepreneurship contingency approach to success. We took a look at the issue about access to capital and raising financing. Access to capital indeed is really a controversial issue because there is always a different school of thought about it. We also look at the risk involved in starting up a business, and the most particular risk to look out for is operational and financial risk, and they are very critical risk elements that you must pay particular attention because it could cripple your business. We also look at the issue of our partnership whereby you could invite a third party to partner your business to enable your business grow as quickly as possible. We also took a look at market penetration and development, which are very critical as far as startups are concerned. On this note, I want to introduce our guest for today, who is well knowledgeable and has some level of management consultancy as well as research. He's a very practical-oriented gentleman and has in-depth knowledge in business outsourcing and management consultancy. He has rich experience in research and business regulatory compliance, market entry, and corporate services for businesses of all sizes. His CV is quite rich, so I will not be able to continue with all. Ken Kojo Sarfo, he's a management partner of Firstcode Management Services. You are welcome to our superstation, Joy 99.7 FM. And as usual, you know that Masterclass delves into business development program that facilitates businesses across all spheres of the economy. First, let me ask you what outsourcing is and how different it is from business processing, outsourcing, and on top of that, how critical is outsourcing to businesses of today?
Okay, thank you very much, and very good afternoon to your listeners. I'm happy for this opportunity. I think you've already started explaining what outsourcing is. You've hit on the main important issues, but let me attempt to throw some more light on it. So outsourcing is basically, like you said, farming out some critical aspects of your businesses to third parties, identifying some activities or some services that you intend to give out to a third party to render for you. The third party could be a corporate body, it could be a contractor, a subcontractor, or anybody who intends to provide those services to your company. That's basically what the concept of outsourcing is all about.
Okay, so I also asked on top of that how critical it is to today's business, because we all know that in all sectors of the economy, a lot of businesses are engaged in outsourcing, basically because it also helps to reduce costs in order for the businesses to make more revenue to grow their bottom line.
Indeed, outsourcing is a very critical aspect of business, particularly for startups, in the sense that, like you discussed earlier, last week you delved a lot into financing and capital raising for startups, and indeed it's become a ubiquitous subject now. We all say that financing is one of the major reasons why startups fail, and sometimes end up discussing it as under 5 mortality, in the sense that we look at them as businesses who do not thrive beyond 5 years. But indeed, capital and then funding is not the only reason for this.
Okay.
The reason why outsourcing is a critical matter in the startup discussion is because most startups, I think the reason they end up not getting to where they intend to get to is because of particularly managerial challenges. Usually, they do not possess or they do not have the required skills and expertise required of the business to succeed.
Okay.
And all attention and focus is on capital and funding and all that. There is indeed a lot more that businesses need to put together in reaching where their objectives are. So the reason why outsourcing is very important is as an entrepreneur, once you begin the concept of going into business, you should understand that there are some services that obviously you can't do it all by yourself.
Absolutely.
You can obviously not undertake everything that there is to get your business to reach its objectives or goals. This is the critical reason why you need to outsource certain aspects of your businesses. So in terms of your operational activities, your service lines, you need to obviously categorize them into 2 areas, the core services and then the non-core services. Find out which aspects of your business you think you don't have the capacity and the expertise to execute.
Okay.
And then you end up finding the right contractor or the right agent to take up those services for you. And that's the reason why outsourcing is indeed critical for startup businesses.
So talking about the need for a business to outsource some of its services, which particular areas, or let me say departments that you would advise to be outsourced? Because again, for instance, in the banking industry where I came from, basically they look out for outsourcing the operations department, i.e. tailoring and customer services. So which areas or sectors of the operations will you say that the startup should outsource the business?
Okay, so this would depend on the type of business you run and obviously the stage of your business. But since the conversation is limited to the startups are obviously businesses within their first phase or their first stage.
Absolutely.
And there are indeed several services that you run as a startup, and you can put them under your core services, like I said earlier, or the non-core services. So looking at your operations, it will be difficult for me to advise or recommend which areas you should outsource. But you need to take your time and then find out from amongst your team which of the areas are critical to our operations, which of the areas are needed for our businesses to thrive, yet we do not have the capacity or the skills to undertake them. At this point, you just pause and identify that, no, I need to find out the right company with the expertise or the right firm that has the capacity to take up the business. So let me just narrow down a bit. Like I said earlier, we try to categorize them into core and non-core. I would recommend that startups would consider farming out their non-core services to a contractor or to a partner. Okay. I usually prefer you deal with a partner as an outsourcing firm instead of contracting it to a company and calling it a company. When you say you're dealing with a partner, what it means is that the person needs to understand your business and then obviously move with you. So in terms of the areas, obviously every business, the non-core areas are obviously areas that cut across every line of business.
Okay.
I mean, when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to HR issues, when it comes to IT support services, and then obviously accounting services. Regardless of what your area of operation is or what your core mandate is, these are areas that you definitely need to have control over to enable your business to survive. So when you want to, depend on what you're doing, some service, you may be an accounting firm, and obviously accounting cannot be seen as a non-core services for you, because if you're an accounting startup and you provide accounting services for other firms, I don't expect that you would outsource your accounting service. I guess you understand from that level.
If you could throw more light on that.
Okay, so typically, I mean, what happens to be a non-core service for company A may be the core service for company B. That's what I mean to say. So a company involved in cleaning services, definitely would have cleaning as its core service. And for that matter, if the company provides cleaning services to third-party companies, you would expect the company to handle its own cleaning service. And so cleaning then becomes a core service for that company. But for another company involved in, let's say, IT support services, definitely they will need somebody else to outsource that aspect of business to them. So back to the issue of accounting, if you run accounting services, you obviously will see accounting as part of your operations, and then the accounting services that you require other than the third party will obviously become part of your activities, and then you are not going to farm them out. So directly to your question as to what areas to farm out to an outsourcing firm and which ones not to, I would advise that startups will pause a bit and identify that at the level of starting our business, what are the strains? And then where are we having challenges with deliverables? Once you notice that indeed there are some strains on operations, and then there are some deliverables or your deliverables are not met, you should then understand that there is a need for you to pick out certain areas of your business and then find out the key people to give them out to. So these would include, like I said, accounting services, IT support services, payroll management, and any other area that you think you don't have the expertise. And the whole idea is for you to focus on your main area and then leave out those other areas for the experts to handle them for you.
Well, you are listening to the masterclass on your superstation, Joy 99.7 FM. Remember that we are streaming live on our Facebook page, Joy 99.7 FM. You can also access us on our Twitter handle, Joy 99.7 FM. You can send your messages and questions via our WhatsApp line 055 1111997. King Sarfo is my guest for today's show, and he has already been delving on the issue about non-core services and core services as far as outsourcing. His advice is that a startup should look at the non-core services, especially to outsource the business in order to reduce cost. And Ken, let's look at the issue about the relevance of outsourcing to startup entrepreneurship. I know you've touched about some in your earlier submission, but on a whole, let's look at the relevance of outsourcing to startup businesses.
Okay, so before I do that, let me attempt to throw a bit of light on the question you raised earlier regarding the difference between the BPO services, business process outsourcing, and what outsourcing are. I mean, just like you said, the business process and outsourcing is indeed an aspect of outsourcing. So there are several aspects of outsourcing. There is the knowledge process outsourcing. Usually you see a lot of that in the pharmaceutical industries, where they outsource critical research areas and then decision-making skills to other third parties, and that's what you normally will call knowledge process outsourcing. There is IT outsourcing, and then there is indeed business process outsourcing. So it's just one aspect of outsourcing, but often discussed or used interchangeably. So in terms of the relevance or how important it is for startups, I would continue to maintain that the most important aspect of it is the fact that it allows startups to focus on their core business, to keep an eye on their mandate, to continue to drive whatever they started their business for. And so to keep your eye on the vision, just understand the fact that there are still other critical areas that you can't overlook. I am hesitant to call them secondary. Let me consider them as non-primary functions that you need to take care of all those areas. And then once you do that, definitely allows you time on your hands for you to focus on your core business. Let me give you a typical example. You start a business and then you are probably into fashion business. Let's say somebody in fashion. You probably just left school, graduate, and then you decide to do your own business. So you go into fashion. Gradually, you're looking at coming up as one of the best fashion designers in town. You're managing quite a number of things. You'll be managing the production. You'll be designing. You'll be looking out for customers, and then you'll be selling to your customers. You then would have started a company. You're looking at gradually running the company, making sure it doesn't fail, and then growing it. These three areas are very critical. You have to keep your eye on that ball. The fact that you have started, continue to be in business by running the business. Run the business, and then your goal is to grow it. In doing so as a fashion business, you understand the fact that there are some services you need to also set your mind to them. One of them is bookkeeping. You definitely will not be a successful business if you continue to run a business without keeping your records. Definitely you need to make sure that you manage your accounts. And this day and age, obviously, because of COVID 2020, we can see that the concept of startup and entrepreneurship has become a bit coterminous. And for that matter, you do not want to have any business and take yourself out of, or take your business out of the virtual or the space of technology. So there are still some other areas that you need to consider. And these are areas that you cannot handle all that, because that is not where your expertise are. So in issues like this, you take your time as a fashion. Your expertise probably is in designing. You design the best clothes. You look out for people who want to patronize them. Absolutely. And then obviously you reach out to them and you make money. Most startups are not able to tell, how much money am I making? Am I indeed in business? At what level am I breaking even? And then what does it mean for me to say that I need to bring on somebody? You just need to work with the numbers. So you need to keep your eye on it. And that's why that is one of the critical aspects of the business that the fashion designer may not be able to avert attention to. Even if she has a team or he has a team of people working with, definitely you put up a team because you want to focus on growing a fashion business. And the team may not have their expertise in other areas, such as recruiting the best skills to work with you. Okay. Other areas such as managing non-core services, including HR functions, managing a payroll, IT support, all that. So in such instances, keep your eye on the ball, run your fashion business, and then call on all these aspects to support these activities, and definitely get you to reach wherever your fashion business wants to go to.
Well, you are listening to the masterclass on your superstation, Joy 99.7 FM. My guest for today's show is Ken Kojo Sarfo, Managing Partner of Firstcode Management Services, and we've been delving on the issue about leveraging corporate support and outsourcing services for startups. Ken, I have a question from Kofi Amiao. Kofi Amiao is actually, he sent this question from Adenta, and he's saying that he's into IT support services, and which areas of his business should he consider outsourcing?
Okay, so Kofi, what I'll say is that I cannot categorically tell you which areas of your business you should outsource, but my advice to you is that definitely as an IT company, I imagine that your expertise is in IT, and you definitely will have a team of people you work with, and then they probably will be channeling their efforts to run an IT business. So just look at other areas that you think you need control over, you think that they are necessary for your business to get to the next level. Okay. And then find out if you can get the right team of people, the right aspects, or the right partners to come on board to support these services. So Kofi, I would say that for an IT company, if you want your team to focus on running IT, then look at some of the services, including, because you don't need an IT outsourcing company. You definitely would need somebody to support you with your bookkeeping and accounting services. You need somebody to support you with probably wherever you're running your business. You definitely will be recruiting people. And then HR is a very critical aspect of every business. Okay. So look out for the best partner who will support you to hire the best employees, and obviously to manage the salaries and other payroll needs of your company.
Well, you can reach us on our WhatsApp line 055 1111997. I repeat, 055 1111997. Send your questions and comments, and Ken Kofi Sarfo will actually respond to all of that. A masterclass is actually brought to you by Gol Good Energy, Gol Yena Ra Yedia. Ken, let's look at the benefits of outsourcing to startups. We have actually spoken about the issue about cost. It also creates some level of synergy. But on a whole, let's look at exactly what are the entire benefits of outsourcing to startups.
Obviously, there are quite a number of them, and we've discussed a few of them the past couple of minutes. Yeah, so cost is one of them. The reason why cost becomes an important benefit to startups is because you enjoy the economies of scale. Whoever you're outsourcing or you're farming out your business sectors or your business operations to will definitely have a pool of clients, and definitely you would end up leveraging on some resources that company has. So that is where the advantage of cost comes in. You obviously also get to benefit from industry best practices, because definitely your outsourcing partner will be dealing with a lot more people and will be getting abreast with industry regulations and then industry practices to enable him meet the services of clients. So you definitely get advantage of industry best practices, and then obviously you get to also benefit from focusing on your business and then keeping your team glued to the purpose for which your business was started, and then you make a lot of progress from that angle.
Well, you are still listening to your superstation Joy 99.7 FM. It's Masterclass, and Masterclass is brought to you by Gwal, Good Energy Gwal, Yenara, Yedia. Our WhatsApp line is still activated, 05511119997. Kofi, Kojo, this particular issue, outsourcing and offshoring, clearly can you give the differences, and to what extent has offshoring been of importance to many businesses today in this country?
Okay, so offshoring, the term may appear something that is a bit complex to understand, but offshoring is just an aspect of outsourcing. It's basically you outsourcing your services to a company or a firm off the shores of wherever you're operating. So there is offshoring, and we sometimes say onshoring, and then indeed there is even the concept of nearshoring, where you decide to outsource aspects of your businesses to neighboring countries. That's what nearshoring is. So offshoring is just reaching out to companies or outsourcing partners who are outside the shores of, usually in areas outside your region. That is what basically offshoring is all about. And the fact of it is that they end up dealing with companies globally, and so you benefit from the global competitiveness that they have.
Amma from North Kaneshi is saying that she wants to go into offshoring business. Would you recommend her?
It of course depends. As a consultant, I'm actually very hesitant in telling people what to do. I just help them to decide what is best for them. I do not know exactly what Amma does, but offshoring means that offshoring definitely will be an area you can explore around this period because of some of the advantages that COVID-19 has brought, virtual business, and then the advantages of online activities. So offshoring means that Amma would be in Ghana and be providing services to people in other countries. And so it depends on what Amma does. If Amma thinks that there is indeed demand for whatever she does, and the demand is obviously out there and she wants to reach out to them, then indeed it's a good time for Amma to consider building a market base outside and providing those services to them. And Amma should consider that, is there a reason why my market or my targets would want to reach out to me? Is it because they're going to get a competitive advantage in the area of cost, expertise? So I'm unable to speak directly to it because I don't know exactly what Amma wants to offshore.
Yeah, absolutely. But, the issue about offshoring is something that has a lot of opportunities as far as businesses are concerned. As startups, is it prudent for startups to look out offshoring business?
Okay, so offshoring can be relatively more expensive for a startup considering offshoring services. It depends obviously on what aspects of your businesses you decide to outsource. And if you consider offshoring as an option, you obviously would need to compare them to the onshore aspects of it, and then find out whether you would want to deal with companies outside the region or companies outside your jurisdiction. I think the most important aspect is not about whether you are offshoring or you are onshoring or you are nearshoring. It's basically about who is able to provide the services that you need, and then how much of that service is critical to your operations, and then how much are you willing to part away for that service. So I think a lot more focus should be on what you need and not necessarily the fact that you are offshoring. But if you are a startup and you want to go into offshoring, like you asked the case of Amma, then in that concept, you definitely would want to remain in Ghana, build your capacity, make sure you have the right resources, and then reach out to targets outside Ghana, and then you provide them. Then you are an outsourcing company. Amma then remains an outsourcing and provides the services to those companies.
Well, rightly so, Kojo Sarfo. Indeed, we've been delving into leveraging corporate support and outsourcing services for startups. And so far, we've been looking at outsourcing from different perspectives, but we want to critically look at the issue about identifying outsourcing companies. What exactly should startups look out for in identifying outsourcing companies?
I'll first start by saying that you don't outsource and sleep. At every point in time as an entrepreneur, you need to think about how important your business is to you. And then even at the point of identifying the outsourcing company, you need to first of all identify your needs and then look out for options and then identify the best among those options.
Okay.
And then what would you call the best among these options? find out certain important aspects that will cut across every business. For instance, in this era of data security, data protection, Ghana passed the data protection law in 2012. And so if you're dealing with an outsourcing company, it's important for you to consider how critical your data means to you.
Absolutely.
And so you want to make sure that whichever company you consider would be able to, provide you data security and, of course, data protection. And indeed, a company must also comply with other regulatory agencies. In any case, if you outsource, it doesn't mean that the responsibility or the statutory obligation has left you, your company. You definitely will be responsible. Okay. So that's why I said you don't outsource and sleep. So make sure that the company outsourcing, the company has the expertise, the company definitely would have the capacity to deliver whatever you want, and then they also have a pool of resources. They have the experience to deliver all that to you. So identifying the company, take your time first, identify what you need, look out for companies that are best fit to provide you what you need, and ensure that the companies are also compliant, because every business is supposed to stay within the regulatory framework. And most importantly, like I said, make sure that they have a data protection, and then be ready to keep your eye on the ball even whilst you outsource. You don't outsource and then sleep. Remember, some of the critical areas is, in my practice, for instance, I have clients who would almost always send me a quick email because they're doing that, just going for a tender, and then sometimes they would even forward the mail to me, and I need to look out and then just attend to whatever they want, because if I outsource some of those services to my firm, some of them have considered areas like some corporate support services, including corporate secretarial activities. They do not have the capacity to meet, and gradually the regulatory framework in Ghana is becoming very stringent.
Okay.
And so every area, if you look at the laws from Petroleum Commission, if you look at it from the Ghana Free Zones Authority, the Investment Promotion Authority, and then Council, and then if you go to even the primary one, which is the Registrar General Department, the laws are gradually becoming stringent, and for that matter, you need to make sure that the right people are handling your portfolio.
Right.
So in my company, for instance, if you have people who have outsourced their services to us, so whenever there's a need for us to attend to anything, they just call on us, and then we reach out to provide the services for them. But they don't leave us to do that work alone. They just make sure that they are in touch with us. And that's why I keep saying that consider your outsourcing firm to be a partner and not just a contractor that you leave your headaches to.
Rightly so. Our WhatsApp line is still activated, 055-11-11997. You can reach us with your comments as well as your questions. And King Kojo Sarfo of Firstcode Management Services is here to answer or respond to all your questions and comments as well. The issue about corporate support, indeed, it's very critical. To a larger extent, a startup needs some level of corporate support to be able to grow as quickly as possible. You might not grow as quickly as possible, but within a period, you should be able to grow and be able to have confidence that going into the future, it looks brighter. So, to what extent should a startup look out for in terms of corporate support?
Okay, so the startup in itself, it's a phase of the business cycle. If you're a startup, like I said earlier, then you're in the first stage of your business, and the first stage is usually characterized by the fact that the founder or the founding members of the business continue to fund the operations of the business, and the business is not able to sustain itself. So they usually would look out for crowdfunding or loans from friends and then relatives. That's basically what characterizes the first phase of every business cycle, and for that matter, that is what a startup business is all about. So if you are in a startup and you are focusing on your main area, right. You have some areas that you are looking at giving out to third parties to handle for you. So you mentioned the issue of corporate support.
Absolutely.
These corporate support services are basically, just like the name suggests, the support services that are needed by your business to thrive. So definitely your business will require so many critical areas to remain in business. These corporate services are what you would normally look out for. Most startups also fail simply because they are selling products that do not have demand. So in that case, they definitely want to make sure that they rely on research services. To what extent are you looking at the market? Do you have the capacity and the skill to look at the market? I mean, quite a number of people are succeeding in catering services, and so are going to catering services. Does catering service, would it work for the geographical area where you're operating? Is there a market for catering service? How competitive is the market?
So you have to look at
you need to look at certain, and you probably will not have the capacity to do all these things. So maybe there's a research aspect of it that you need to do. And then if indeed you are successful with catering service now, to what extent can you escalate it? How can you continue to run and grow it? So you then identify somebody who has expertise in research. The person will then look out for certain key areas that will tie into you meeting your objectives as a company, and that means that you would have outsourced your research function.
Well, just a quick question coming from Emma of Tema Community 7. Emma is asking whether it is advisable to outsource internally. Advisable to outsource internally. I struggle to understand exactly what Emma means, but if Emma is looking at farming out certain services to people within, which is typical outsourcing service, people within the jurisdiction or in Ghana, yes, of course. It depends on what you're doing, and to be okay to do that. So, Emma, if you could come again, I struggle to understand exactly what you mean by outsourcing your services internally. Well, that exactly is what Emma is. I'm sure Emma is listening to us, so probably Emma can hit back again for us. She actually added that hiring people from your organization who have some requisite skills needed to keep the business running. That's more or less like a question. Okay, I understand that. So what Emma means is that, for instance, you're running a fashion business, and then there is one of your designers who has expertise in, let's say, IT, and you need IT support services. Emma wants to understand whether it's advisable for you to outsource that function to that staff of yours or to that team member of yours. This is a very dicey question, and it does depend on a lot of things. There is indeed issues of conflict of interest here and there, and you want to understand the extent to which you want to commit to that particular function you're outsourcing. Okay. So whoever is in your team, in the context of the example of a fashion designer, you are looking at Kofi being one of your designers and Kofi running an IT company. So now you want to outsource your IT functions to Kofi. Are you comfortable with the fact that Kofi would have the attention to provide the services? Okay. And if you're able to address all issues of conflict of interest, then obviously you are better off dealing with that person. Well, King Kojo Sarfo is our guest for today's Masterclass show. We will take a quick break. We'll be back in a jiffy. But let me announce the phone lines. It's 0302216541. Immediately after we return from the break, you can call in, ask your questions and comments, and King Kojo Sarfo is here to answer all the questions and comments.
The masterclass is in session, and you can interact with us via Facebook at Joy Business or at Joy 99.7 FM. And if you tweet, the handle is at Joy 997 FM. Don't forget to hashtag masterclass. You can also send us a text on 1422 across all networks, or join the WhatsApp conversation on 0244 340437, and our facilitators will address your concerns. Attention everyone, class is in progress.
Well, you are listening to the Superstation Joy 99.7 FM. It is Masterclass. Masterclass is brought to you by Gwal Good Energy, Gwal Yenara Yedia. Gwal Cashless has never been this convenient and exciting. Gwal e-payment system is now compatible with GH Link, the national payment platform. Now you can use your GH Link card on Gwal POX machine to purchase fuel. GH Link card offers additional payment option for fuel purchases at Gwal stations in addition to the Go card. Every fuel purchased is recorded automatically on your monthly bank statement, helping cardholders track and manage their expenses. So go ahead and use your GH Link card to buy fuel and all lubricants from any of Gwal's over 400 stations across Ghana. Go cashless and protect yourself and stick to all COVID-19 protocols in these times. Gwal, Good Energy, Gwal Yenara Yedia. Our phone lines is activated. You can reach us on 0302-216-541, and Ken Kojo Sarfo would respond to all your comments and questions. We still have some messages, WhatsApp messages, and Ken Richard Dixon is asking, for how long can an employee be outsourced before the main company decides to onboard such an employee as permanent staff? So that's what Richard Dixon is asking. Okay, so Dixon basically wants to understand that if a company decides to outsource its HR function, particularly staffing, Dixon wants to understand how long the company can outsource that service.
This basically depends on the understanding between the two entities. So if you think that your function as a startup, your function requires that for the initial phase of your business, or probably for the first couple of years of your business, you have decided to outsource this function because you don't have the capacity, then definitely you enter into what we call a service level agreement with a company. And then if you decide to cap that in a year or in 2 years, then you are good to go. But indeed, there isn't any, I'm not privy to any legislation or any enactment that would limit you in terms of how long you can outsource that.
Well, this one has no name, but I'll quickly read it. And the person is saying that, please, whoever I send my business ideas with refuses to partner me, please, what next? I mean, this is a subject that perhaps it's difficult to answer.
Yeah, it depends. Whoever you sell your business idea to is reluctant to partner you.
Absolutely.
So you probably have to pause a bit. Maybe this will be outside the scope of this discussion, but still within the framework of entrepreneurship. You have to probably pause a bit and find out if there is something you can do better. How are you communicating whatever your business idea is? And to what extent are you even convinced that this business idea is one that can sell? I think it's usually very easy for you to convince yourself that, listen, I need to do something. Something needs to be done. I'm probably not getting any job, and so I want to start something.
Okay.
Then you fantasize on an idea. So I probably think that what the listener would have to do is to pause a bit and then reconsider the business idea, and then package it properly and communicate it out to the right target.
There's another question coming in. Good afternoon. I want to start a management consulting business. How do I go about to launch it properly? And it's coming from Cipron.
Okay, so Cipron, I'm into management consulting. So there's a beautiful way of telling you how you can be in a competitive environment with me. Let me attempt to do that. So management consulting obviously is a very broad discipline, and there are so many aspects of management consulting. So you need to identify exactly what you want to do, and then start it like any other business, of course, a startup. So find out what your expertise is, and then make sure that obviously you incorporate a business, get the right team, and then look out for the right market and reach them out for services. But be very emphatic, because management services are very broad. Management consultancy is a very broad concept. I focus in corporate support and outsourcing services, but I'm limited a lot more to compliance and market entry services, and we do accounting services. But depending on what he wants to do in management consulting, I think he needs to just start as any other startup, go through the phases, and then reach out to customers and run the business from there.
I think one thing he must also look at is building relationships, and that comes to the aspect of how critical relationship is to startups.
Exactly. Relationships and network has been discussed over time, and it's indeed a very important aspect in this day and age. You just have to ask that if the people around me, if my family and then my friends and my colleagues do not believe in what I have to sell, because we live in a country where usually people would applaud you for just anything at all. They'll just applaud you and say you're doing well. Whatever you're doing, unfortunately, we don't get people to be very emphatic and tell you, listen, Ken, I think this is not right. There's a way to make it better. So in terms of relationships, you need to understand that satisfy the people within your close circle, friends and family. Satisfy them by way of providing business services to them. You get to know all the mistakes usually at that level. Once you do that, leverage on other relationships that you might have had. It could be your colleagues back in school. It could be people that you meet at different functions. And then make sure that you do not only sell to them because they are within your network, but because you have something to sell and then they are ready to buy.
Well, our phone lines are still activated, 0302-216-541. You can reach us on WhatsApp, 055-11-11997. I still have Ken Kojo Sarfo in the studio. He's actually helping us to discuss on the issue about leveraging corporate support and outsourcing services for startups. We have been looking at different perspectives, but let me take you back to the issue about capital. You know, outsourcing, someone will say you don't actually need much capital to start a business that is really into outsourcing. Is that the case, or you need some level of capital to start a business?
So now we're looking at, startups or entrepreneurs who want to go into outsourcing business. It obviously depends on what you want to do. So, for instance, I understand that if you want to provide outsourcing services in the space of IT, technology related, you would have to invest a bit in that. And so our sourcing service depends on exactly what you want to focus on and then what kind of investment is required to do that. If you're providing recruitment or HR functions, I don't expect that you put in too much by way of resources, but you have to understand that you need to build the right team to deliver on that. So what capital one needs to start an outsourcing business would depend on what focus area you want to build an outsourcing business in.
Well, King Kojo Sarfo here is on the show Masterclass on your superstation Joy 99.7 FM. We have barely 2.5 minutes to 2:15, and exactly 2:15 we will be wrapping up. Ken, generally, what would be your advice to startups in terms of the approach in running the business, in terms of raising funds, in terms of marketing or business development activities on the whole?
Okay, so I think I'll say that, like I mentioned earlier, the whole concept of startups and then the entrepreneurship ecosystem have become a very ubiquitous term now. If you want to find yourself in that space, you need to take your time and identify that what product or service do I have to put out on the market. You need to make sure that there is indeed demand for your product. You need to commit to it. You need to understand the challenges that come with running a business. You need to consult widely and then get to know that the issue of funding and capital that is always being sung in our ears is not necessarily the only major challenge for startups. So if I have any major advice for startups, I would say that they should build a lot more capacity in managerial expertise to run their business. And then they should be able to even identify aspects that they don't have those expertise in, and they should find out the right people to farm out those areas to them.
Well, finally, what's your take on in terms of leveraging corporate support? We've delved into corporate support and outsourcing, but in terms of leveraging corporate support, what is the way forward? How should startups go about in terms of leveraging corporate support?
I'll take this from two sides. I think that if you look at it at the regional level, the South Africa particularly is doing very well. There are quite a number of startup businesses in South Africa. You can outsource almost everything that you do in South Africa. Nigeria is doing pretty well. Ghana is doing well. We are picking up a bit, but there are still opportunities for startups who want to go into outsourcing. So that's another opportunity you can look at. But then in terms of leveraging on it, if you're running a startup business, understand the fact that there are some outsourcing companies in Ghana you can look out for. You can just go online and then reach out to some of them. Just be sure that you're dealing with credible companies and identify how you can.
Well, on this note, we bring the curtains to an end, and it was a fruitful conversation on leveraging corporate support and outsourcing in today's business. And I would say King Kojo Sarfo has been of immense help. We've delved into the issue. We've come out with different perspectives, and leveraging corporate support and outsourcing services for startups is the way to go for young entrepreneurs. Indeed, we need to bridge the entrepreneurship gap going forward. My name is Charles Nixon. But next week we will definitely continue with the topic graduate entrepreneurship, but we'll look at it from a different perspective. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good afternoon.